Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on how to connect with your audience and how to build rapport with your audience. I think it's really important that we have that rapport, that connection, that trust between you as a presenter, trainer, facilitator, whatever you're doing. The trust enables you to get your message across, to ask people to come on a challenge, a change, a new way of doing things. So today, in the short time I have with you, 30-minute webinar, I want to give you some tips to just help you build that rapport and build that connection with your audience every time you get before a group of people and speak. Some of you haven't been on my webinars before, so please ask questions as we go. You can do that by typing in the dialog box. If I'm going to cover the question, there's a good chance I'll just park that question and get back to it later. Take notes as you go. Bear in mind, I make this webinar recording available to you, so if I gloss over something too quickly, don't be too concerned, because you can have access to the recording that you can review in your own time. Participate, think, and apply. So not only questions, but feel free to pass on comments or your own experiences. And I think the apply is very important. When you apply what I'm teaching you to a previous workshop, so go back into the past and think of what you might have done differently to make that workshop, that training session, a little bit better, or think of one you've got coming up, you're planning for the next week or next year. What are you going to do differently? It's this application, this applying the knowledge, that makes the difference. All right, let's get underway. The agenda. Why should we build rapport? The concept of trust, the importance of preparation, and preparation is one of the keys to building rapport. Some other tools to help you build rapport. The idea to keep the connection, keep the rapport going after the event, after the conversation, and some things to avoid. I call them rapport busters. All right, let's move through that agenda. So why build rapport? I love this quote. It's a marketing quote, Marketing 101. I don't know who says the quote. I've searched for the source of the quote. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. The reality is, when you're speaking, when you're training, when you're educating, when you're sharing your knowledge, you are selling. You are marketing your information, your knowledge, your idea, your point of view. So I've modified that quote slightly. People listen and learn from people they know, like, and trust. That's why we build rapport. That's why we connect. It's the trust that enables you to ask people to come on a journey with you, ask people to adopt your way of thinking. So how to build rapport? Why build rapport? Well, the first thing is to connect with your audience. As with that quote, it's the trust and the connection that allows people to buy from you. If you're not in connection, if you're not in rapport, the audience may reject your message. One of the mistakes that people make is they get on stage, they get before an audience, and then they teach you how to suck eggs. They tell you what you need to do, and you haven't even had a chance to find out who they are. Why should you trust them? So we build rapport to help us connect with the audience. It helps us generate trust. So with that rapport, with that connection, with that taking the time to explore and share, you get into that trusted situation. And the next webinar I'm going to do later on in this month is about eye contact. And part of the way we build trust is by our eye contact and our other nonverbal communications. Helps us build credibility, to create credibility. When we're in rapport, people start to trust us and they feel connected, we seem more credible. And as you get more credible, you can take people on a journey. If you don't have credibility, then people might say that's a nice message, that's very interesting, but you haven't given me any reason to believe you or to follow you. Helps to demonstrate reliability. You're seen as a go-to person. You're seen as someone that always has a valuable opinion because you do connect with people and they remember you. And when something comes up, they say, now, who is that person who has a lot of expertise or had some great ideas or new ways forward around solving this problem? And you're seen as a go-to reliable person because you've created that rapport. And rapport does go on, does endure. It can become lasting. And part of your rapport is those first impressions. And you know we only have one chance to make a good first impression. And you gain permission. So when you're in rapport, when I connect with you, you infer that I have permission to take you on a journey or to sell my products or my information to you. So that's why we build rapport. Helps us connect, get in sync with our audience. That then elevates our level of trust, our level of credibility. We're seen as reliable. We become a little bit more memorable. And we now have that inferred permission to challenge us, challenge our audience, take them on a journey, teach new information. I've spoken about trust. So how to build trust. Some tips that will help you build trust. Make sure you know what you're talking about. Be able to go deep, more so than wide. So part of a presentation is knowing what your niche is, what you speak on, and making sure that you manage people's expectations, and you're here to talk about that. And if you've got a deep depth of knowledge, experience, when things have gone wrong, the way you've got out of particular issues, then you build trust with people. You become a trusted advisor, a trusted source of information. If people, and we say, have a niche which is an inch wide and a mile deep. So know what you're talking about. If people ask questions that are kind of outside of your niche, a little bit juxtaposition, then that's fine. You can, because you've allowed people to know what you're expert in, what this presentation's about, what I'm here to talk to you about. When these questions come as outsiders, you can quite confidently say, look, really good question. I don't have the answer to that. That's a little bit outside of my expertise. I've got a colleague, I've got a friend, I've read a journal article. Let me get back to you on this particular question. But what you are talking about, make sure you know it well. If you want to build trust, especially if you're talking about disruption, innovation, change, those kinds of things, know your topic well. Do what you say. Make sure you walk the talk. A financial advisor who will talk to you about the importance of investing in growth assets as opposed to depreciating assets, who drives up in a Mercedes-Benz, which costs $100,000. He's kind of bragging and he's made a lot of money, but that Mercedes-Benz is, losing significant value each 12 months. And he's telling you not to invest in fancy toys and bells and whistles. The time management trainer who starts 5 minutes late or goes 10 minutes over time as he's talking to you, training to you about time management. I talk about overcoming your fear of public speaking. I love working with people who have a fear of public speaking. As a person who stutters and has feared public speaking all my life, as a person who is an elective mute for much of my life, and some of you have been on my workshop, see my video. So I face my fears. I tell you to face your fears. I tell you that you can do public speaking. I do public speaking myself. So I kind of walk the talk. People trust me. Have some credentials and experience. That's qualifications, that's stories, that's experience, that's information, that's knowledge to back up what you're saying. Feel free to reveal your vulnerability. I love the book by Brené Brown, The Power of Vulnerability, and also the TED Talk. You can watch that TED Talk if you want to. Brené Brown, the Power of Vulnerability. Vulnerability is not a dirty word. When you reveal your vulnerability, and part of that is revealing your struggle, sharing your struggle up here, it gives you that credibility. People will trust you because you've also been on that journey. And as I said, share your struggle and share your passion on the topic that you're speaking about. You need to have passion. You need to be truly aligned with your message. You need to light up when you talk about your topic. No matter how mundane or routine it is, how just matter of fact new policy have to go through the steps it is, you still need to have that belief and that passion in the topic you're speaking about. And if you've done a similar journey, a struggle, then people will trust you. People will trust you. I want to talk about preparation, and this is just a precursor slide. And please type any questions in you have as we go. I call this the iceberg model, and about 80% of the iceberg is below the water. Your connection and your rapport comes from preparation. There's a little bit of organic rapport and a connection, but sometimes those naturally gifted salespeople, they build rapport with the audiences, don't always have the credibility, don't always have the ethics, and often the sales is more about making the sale than helping you and serving you as a speaker or trainer. So this just gets into perception, into concept that most of the presentation you do is preparation. A large part of your preparation is around the connection and the rapport. So preparation is how you build rapport and connection. Preparation is how you build trust. Let me explain. Know your audience. Who's in the room? What's their problems? What issues are there for them? What do they want from you? What did the last audience speak? What did the last speaker speak to that audience about? What was the feedback? If your audience walks out with only one skill, with one new piece of knowledge, what is it that skill or knowledge would be? What is it that they want? Do you need to be aware of any cultural nuances? I was in Newman on Tuesday this week, and in fact, Newman and Hope Downs won one of the iron ore mines, and I love to acknowledge always the traditional landowners, and in that area, that is the Nepali people. When I go to Geelong, I acknowledge the Dja Dja Wurrung people. I was in Broome recently and had to acknowledge the Yawuru people. And those of you who've been to my workshops know that when I do a exchange of business cards, I hand my card over with two hands. And those that have got cultural awareness will receive it with two hands. Thank you, Peter. Those that don't have cultural awareness, as I hand it over, will go out and they'll grab it with one hand and snatch it from me, which is normal for an Australian, but the fact you've been offered a card in one particular way, it's culturally appropriate to receive it with two hands. Are there any cultural awarenesses or nuances you need to be aware of? I was speaking in Kerrang, in Victoria. Kerang's between Swan Hill and Bendigo. And it was a group of Aboriginal people. And no, it wasn't a group of Aboriginal people. It was just a group of people. And I acknowledged the Barappa people. And a young man came up to me at morning tea and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm a Yorta man from Shepparton. I'm so glad you acknowledged the traditional landowners. No one does it, and most people don't know whose land it is." And straight away, I've made that connection and that rapport with that gentleman over and above the normal level. Manage your audience expectations. What are their values and beliefs? Use their words, use their language, use their jargon. I was in the mining sector on Tuesday this week. The stories and the language I used were more associated with the mining sector, health and safety, risk assessment. The week before, I was working with the National Disability Insurance Scheme here in Perth, the NDIS. So my stories were more around the disability, the health and well-being, the caring, the human rights. So you pick the right stories, the right language for your audience. This helps you build rapport. This helps you connect with your audience. Meet their expectations. They're going to love you. Understand their values and beliefs. They're going to love you. Know your audience. Give them a cultural compliment. So when you become culturally aware, you can give them a cultural compliment, which is acknowledging the traditional landowners. Excuse my scribble, but this is called a cultural compliment. This will help you build rapport, without a doubt. Are there any questions? So just going a little bit further with your preparation, use the language that your audience understands. Speak their jargon. And it will require some preparation. When I'm speaking with financial planners in the superannuation industry, I use different stories, different anecdotes, different metaphors. When I'm working with the health and the disability sector, I have a different set of stories, a different set of examples that I share with people. Just an example, one of the things I talk about in making your messages really powerful is using a concrete message to create data, to make data memorable. So let me give you a number, and I'm going to give you 2 ways of remembering the data. So the data is the human heart. The human heart in an average lifespan pumps 350 million litres of blood. 350 million litres of blood, according to the Heart Foundation of Australia. The average heart in a human lifespan pumps 350 million litres of blood. Not many people are going to remember that, so I want to make it concrete. So I'm working with Water Authority, Water Corp in Perth, Colaban Water in Bendigo, and I say, go home and turn on your kitchen tap for 45 years, full bore for 45 years. That's 350 million litres. I'm in the mining sector, Barrow Island, Chevron, oil and gas, Rio Tinto. That's enough. 350 million litres is enough to fill 3 super tankers full of oil. So I pick the right language or the right jargon for the right audience or for different audiences. So that'll help you build rapport and connect if you are able to show that you know their language. The other thing is the cultural complement. I mentioned the business card exchange, acknowledge the traditional landowners. Talk football. I was in Melbourne about 2 years ago, and I went to the Melbourne Comedy Festival in March, and I saw an Englishman speak. His name was Mark Watson. Mark Watson is also a West Australian footballer who won the Sandover Medal, not the Brownlow, but the Sandover Medal here in Perth. So that's why I remember Mark Watson's name. Mark Watson was a comedian. He was talking about identity theft. So this is a 1 hour comedy show, and he got his identity stolen for real. And yeah, really bizarre story. Very funny, man. First 5 minutes, he spoke, and he's in Melbourne. He spoke about AFL football, some of the scandals that were before one of the football clubs, who was going to finish on top, who was probably going to be wooden spooners, and he just had the audience in the palm of his hand. Melbourne audience, an Englishman talking AFL football, absolutely informed, beautifully, humorously, like he knew it. He had the audience in the palm of his hand. He paid them the ultimate cultural compliment. He invested a lot of time to understand AFL football for that season, for that coming season. Not 2 years back, not 3 years back, the up and coming season. That'll make you look really good. So some simple tools to build rapport. Use a conversational style. Don't tell them to suck eggs. Don't lecture to them. Don't talk to them. Have that conversational style. Tell stories, the right stories. So this is your using the jargon. People remember stories more so than they remember facts and information and data and 5-step processes and the 7 strategies to achieve success. Tell them the story that they understand. And if the story includes your struggle, as I mentioned earlier on, or a success, then they'll remember that story. Put a surprise in your story, they'll remember that. The stories help you build rapport. Assume your audience knows more than you. This means be a little bit humble. So involve the audience. And if you think about it, in a room of 15 to 20 people that I'm presenting to, the collective wisdom in that room far outweighs my individual wisdom. So by being a little bit humble, no silly questions, I welcome any questions anytime. And if I don't know the answer, let me find out and get back to you. Helps me build rapport, helps me connect with my audience. Inclusive language. So inclusive language, I saw this the other day on the Mind site, and it's health and safety, and what I want and what I need you to do and what I've noticed, it was all about the speaker. So when we start to talk about we and you, and after this, it's what you do that's going to make the difference. If you want to build rapport, you want to connect, if you want to have more impact, then how are you going to build rapport and connect with your audience? See how I'm being inclusive? Together we can make a difference, because I know that what we want from this is we want all our workers to go home safe and sound and in one piece. And we can achieve this as an organisation. I've just switched my language to I, me, to you, we, inclusive language, as with the gestures and the body language. And congruent body language. If you do gestures that are kind of closed, that are not inclusive, hands on hips that may be a little bit more aggressive, if your eye contact is at the roof or the floor as you're asking people to come on a journey with you, why would I trust you? Where does the rapport and the connection come in with that? And the congruent body language. Remember that if your words and what your non-verbals are saying are not congruent, the non-verbals always override the words you say. If you want to connect with people, you want to build rapport, make sure you've got congruent body language. Amy Cuddy, in that famous TED Talk, and I saw Amy speak in Adelaide earlier this year. You can watch this on a TED Talk. If you don't watch TED Talks, CUDDY, can I recommend that you do start watching TED Talks? Amy Cuddy said to be present for your audience, it means you've got absolute congruence between your message and your nonverbal communication. When you don't have presence, when you sort of have fear or nervousness, generally your body language is not congruent with the words you say. All right, moving on. Be authentic, be genuine. That comes along with your passion. This is how you build rapport. What you do on stage is what you do off stage. Have the right attitude. Conviction, believe in your own message, show that with passion, show that with evidence, have a right attitude. You want to be there. You're not just going through the motions. Responsibility, health and safety, people with disability that are in a bad place, you have the ability to change people's lives. Your training, your education, your sharing of your ideas, there's certain responsibility with that. Don't take it lightly. This is communicate with care. This is just my little acronym: conviction, attitude, responsibility, and the right energy level. Be energized. Be the most energized person in the room. Don't be too energized. Don't come in flat. Just be a little bit above the audience, and that'll help you build that rapport, build that connection. Communicate with care is my little acronym, and that'll help you build rapport with your audience. Keep the connection going. Deliver what you promised. Remain behind. When I do my workshops, I remain for another half hour or hour if required. Follow up as promised. I send out resources. I send out post-workshop questionnaires. I do free webinars, add value, offer a free webinar, a free ebook, a free report. Ask for feedback. Respond to the feedback. Adjust your offering, adjust your idea based on the feedback. Keep the connection going. You work hard to build rapport and build connection and build that trust. Why not keep it going? Why not keep it going? Serve your audience. Be of service to your customers. Some rapport busters: acting like the expert. I'm right, you're wrong. Using the wrong language or the wrong message. This is where your jargon is not congruent with the people in the room. Overuse of acronyms. Yeah, the mining sector uses lots of acronyms, and sometimes when they're speaking about things, I have no idea what they're talking about. And the importance of the separation of HVs and LVs, I have no idea what that means until they tell me that HVs are heavy vehicles, so that's the haul packs and the big trucks, and LVs are your light vehicles, which are four-wheel drives and they're utes. You need to separate them because when a haul pack drives over a ute, it's a bad outcome. But that's acronyms. Bad jokes, be aware of bad humor and your inflated ego. You may be the best. You may be an expert. You may have just won some awards. Don't bring that to the workplace. Don't bring that to your presentation. Don't bring that to your facilitation if you want to build rapport. I love this Harvard Business Review quote, wraps it all up, ties it up beautifully. It's your connection that makes the difference, not perfection. The rapport, the connection, the trust that you build with a nervous, a little bit, I'm scared presentation, I have a few stutters, have a few brain drains, a few ums and ers, doesn't matter. If you're in connection, you'll have impact. If you're in connection and rapport, people will allow you to challenge them, to suggest a different direction. Focus on your connection, focus on your rapport. So in summary, we know why to build rapport. It helps us build trust, build credibility, the importance of trust. Do your preparation. Rapport doesn't just come automatically. Those tools that help you build rapport, cultural compliments, use the right language. Why not keep the connection going beyond your event, beyond your facilitation, and don't do those rapport busters. If you need anything, you know it's going to be in the webinar recording. You can send me emails. My soft sell, I did mention, I'll just go forward one. 6th of December, the importance of eye contact, and that'll help you build rapport. Workshops coming up. January, February in Perth, Brisbane, some workshops. We're also setting some workshops for Karratha and Port Hedland in February. And just you can find all of those things on my website. www.peterdew.com, and work with us, events. Follow me on Facebook, and if you haven't seen my movie on Facebook, Stories Out Loud, there's a little 7-minute movie on my life, my struggle as a person who stutters. Thanks for your participation. So remember, your rapport, your connection, the trust you build with your audience will allow you to share your knowledge, your information, will allow you to challenge, disrupt, be innovative, suggest a new way of doing things. So guys, go out there, change your worlds, your communities, your clients, one conversation at a time. Thank you. Bye for now.